heroic saves.
Big post saved! Rio Snovo stonewalled them.
Inter Miami Soccer is on ESPN 106.3.
Gol de Messi!
This is Pink Smoke. Here's Mike Rizzo.
Folks, we got FC Cincinnati and our Inter Miami Herons live tonight on our Inter Miami radio network. Welcome on into Pink Smoke. Our Herons are on the road in Cincinnati. Cincinnati, a team who has historically played Inter Miami pretty well, specifically with Lionel Messi on the squad. Now, we know what happened last year when the Herons ran into him in the Eastern Conference playoffs. Our Inter Miami Herons able to beat them and beat them on their way to an MLS Cup. And Cincinnati, a team this year who got off to a bad start, but believe it or not, they are 6 games unbeaten. 6 games unbeaten with a lot of draws in there. You got 2 wins and 4 draws for Cincinnati. They're 6th on that table in 16th place, or rather with 16 points in 6th place. And the usual suspects with Evander, Danke actually leading the team in goals this year. So we'll continue to break all that down on our Inter Miami radio network. And we know for our Inter Miami Herons, Inter Miami's chasing history. If Inter Miami wins tonight, it'll be their 7th straight road matchup that they have won, and that'll tie the MLS record. So if Inter Miami is able to win tonight, and then, you always want to focus on the now. You always want to focus on tonight. But hypothetically, if Inter Miami wins tonight, they will have a chance to etch their names in the MLS record book as the only team in MLS history to win 8 straight road fixtures. So we'll be keeping an eye on that. And we'll be keeping an eye on plenty of other things. Lionel Messi certainly is in form. He had a goal and 2 assists in his last game. And those 3 points that he was involved in for Inter Miami contributed to 100 goal contributions in the MLS during his time here in the States. It only took him 75 games to do it. To put things in perspective, the recent player who played in Toronto, it took him 95 games to get to 100 100 goal scoring contributions. So Messi able to shatter that record as he always does. But we're expecting Michele Giannoni to join us here on our Inter Miami radio network momentarily. Michele works for Apple TV, the MLS. He's covered World Cups, multiple World Cups. He's covered the United States men's national team. So Michele will bring certainly an interesting perspective when he joins Pink Smoke. But Inter Miami and FC Cincinnati coming up tonight. Our Herons, obviously, is still in form. I know a lot of people still have a bad taste in their mouth from that Orlando fixture, up 3-0 at New Stadium, giving up 4 consecutive goals and losing that game. But if you look at Inter Miami and their fixture list, I mean, truly an incredible record. Inter Miami hasn't lost a game since that Orlando game that they lost. Before that, the last game that they lost was against LAFC all the way back at the beginning of the season. Inter Miami's only lost 2 times this year. And I think that's a tremendous accomplishment. The LAFC game back on February 21st, losing 3-0. But since then, you had a win against Orlando, a win against DC United, and then a plethora of draws between Nashville, Charlotte, and Nashville again. And we all know how the CONCACAF Champions Cup ended. Don't need to rehash that. The stupid rule of away goals came into effect, and Inter Miami was knocked out of the CONCACAF Champions Cup without even losing a game, but neither here nor there. Continuing on the streak that Inter Miami went on, they beat NYCFC. They continued after that to string together great results. They haven't won at the new stadium yet, but we will wait and see. Now, I see that Michele is here on Pink Smoke. Michele, first off, thanks so much for joining us, partner. I just got done explaining to the audience how much ball knowledge that you have covering multiple World Cups. You've covered the United States men's national team. I'm going to have to ask you a couple questions about that. As an American, I'm very worried for our team as we kind of enter the dying embers of our prep, getting ready for the World Cup on this side of the hemisphere. But Michele, thanks so much for joining us, partner. How you doing today?
How are you, Mike? Thank you so much. It's my pleasure.
I'm great. I'm great. And obviously you do the Apple TV and MLS Reporter. You're bilingual. Now I was reading your bio. I feel tremendously stupid only knowing one language because you know Italian. I'm half Sicilian. It is a shame that I know absolutely no Italian, but you know Italian, you know Spanish, and I really felt kind of reading your bio. I'm like, all right, maybe I need to get on one of those apps and learn a language. But Michele, we'll start with Inter Miami. We'll start with Lionel Messi because Messi just became, rather, just broke another record. It took him 75 games to get 100 goal scoring contributions. Just, you've covered this league for a long time. You covered it before Messi, you covered it during Messi. What has Lionel Messi brought to this league from your perspective since joining all the way back those years ago?
Yeah, Mike, it's crazy when you see the statistics, and the former record holder was Jovinko with 95 games. So
Yep.
when you see Messi doing it in less than 20 games, more than 20 games to go, it's just insane. I think Messi brings validity to Major League Soccer. So because he still had so much to give in Europe, and we saw it. He came after winning the World Cup with Argentina and cementing himself as the best player of all time. I think that discussion is over forever. If there was, I think it was over before winning the World Cup, but I think the World Cup gave absolutely it it murdered that discussion, right?
Yep.
I think it gave validity to MLS, because now, since Messi came, and then you see players like Mueller, like Son, and I've spoken with them about this. When players in Europe ask them about Major League Soccer, in Europe now, the image and the sense that now they have about Major League Soccer, it has completely shifted. Because in Europe, even 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 10 years ago, or maybe even 3 years ago, it was looked as a retirement league, as a league where players like Messi, Mueller, or Son were about to come, and they were getting looks like, what are you doing with your career? What do you want to finish there, right? And now you see players like Griezmann coming with in the summer with Orlando. So it's another stepping stone. And I think, again, that these players give validity to Major League Soccer, especially towards Europe, and how Europe and the players that play there now see the league here.
Michele Giannoni joining us here on Pink Smoke, reporter for Apple TV with the MLS. Now, Michele, you talked about how the image of the MLS is starting to change a bit. Do you think we're going to see more players come over like Griezmann, like Messi in the near future to kind of, as you've mentioned, get that validity more towards the MLS? I personally think we're there. I know that the CONCACAF Champions Cup didn't go Inter Miami's way this year, rather the MLS's way at all. But could you possibly see more big time stars coming on over to the MLS?
Absolutely, and because also we gotta think about what players want to do with their personal life. We gotta remember Messi had a way bigger offer from Saudi Arabia,
Yeah.
instead of here, and his family and him chose here, the United States, to because they thought it was a better place for their families, right? And there's a lot of players in Europe that see the US, not just as the next step in playing careers, see the next step for their families and for their life. We got to remember that the United States, it's viewed as a point that a lot of people want to come. Right? Me, as an immigrant growing up in Venezuela, in Italy, I always saw the U.S. as a dream. And what this country can bring to you and your family. And I think the World Cup is gonna make a big impact on players. And I'm not just talking on the sporting side. I'm talking on when they get here. And for example, the teams are gonna be training in college facilities, in Major League Soccer facilities, and they're gonna see these first world class facilities, soccer fields that in most cases they don't have in Europe. And when they see this, and how the soccer and Major League Soccer, it's trying to run the sport here in the US, and not just Major League Soccer. We can talk about USL, we can talk about
Yep.
NWSL with the Women League, which now, in my opinion, is the best league in the world and in women's soccer. Those little things now can help players seeing as a first person, right? It's nobody's telling me. I'm seeing it. I'm practicing on this field. I'm looking at the facilities, And talking with representatives from Germany, from Brazil. Brazil is going to be training near where I'm at in New Jersey. When they come and they have scouted the facilities, they're just blown away. And I think that's going to give more motivation to players to come here and play and make a life for them and for the families.
Michele Giannoni from Apple TV joining us now on Pink Smoke. And that's why, Michele, I think it's a really important for the United States, I think, to do well in the World Cup, too. Not only to grow the MLS, but I think to get the American soccer kid to, continue to play the game. Look at all the great athletes that we have scattered across the NFL, the NBA. I mean, if some of them started kicking a soccer ball rather than throwing a football or shooting a basketball, Michele, I think that the United States, the power dynamic of the player could change a little bit. Now, when you look at American football, we've come a long way. Christian Pulisic has helped out with that. Certainly Weston McKennie, all the way back to Tim Howard, Landon Donovan, Clint Dempsey. But I'm still waiting for the day where the United States, where we can match up with the Portugal and we can match up with the Brazil and not be such big underdogs. Do you see that maybe in the near future coming to fruition, to where maybe we could go, toe to toe with some of the top teams in the world?
In soccer, it's all about talent, right? Especially in soccer, and how do you develop the youngsters? Because unlike another American sports that where kids go to college and they reach NFL, the MLB, or any other sport, the NBA, they get there after college. They get there when they're 20, 19, 21. In soccer, you have players at 15, 16-year-olds already playing, right? If you're good enough, you're all enough, right? And we got to remember that Major League Soccer is just 30 years old. And there are teams that didn't have an academy set up even 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 10 years ago. So in soccer, that development is very important to compete. So right now, the US is clearly not at the talent level as Portugal, as Belgium, like we saw on the last FIFA window, the last two friendlies. And we're still not talking the next step, right? Spain, England, Germany,
Yeah.
Brazil, Argentina, etc. So the US is going to get there, but it's going to take time as these young kids develop. Now, you see in Major League Soccer, for example, you see how you've seen, for example, how academy kids in Inter Miami had already made their debuts in Major League Soccer. You see New York Red Bulls with their 16-year-old with Adri Mehmeti being started on midfield. Gozo with 18 years old being one of the goal scorers in Major League Soccer. So that player development takes time, and again, the US has a lot to catch up, but I think we're heading in the right direction. The thing is that here and it's I don't want to sound bad. I'm just saying this like in a positive
Yeah.
way. Of course, and you see it when the US, when we talk about the NFL, the Olympics, the NBA, the MLB, the US it's the best, right? It's the best league in the world. So I think sometimes the American fan that doesn't understand how how soccer works, especially in
Yeah.
Europe, have that entitlement in their head, and they don't necessarily understand, like, why are we not the best in the world? We are the best
Right.
in the world on everything except soccer. So I guess there's some frustration, and that's why the World Cup is so important, and Major League Soccer is so important, and trying to get that message into people that soccer doesn't work like the other leagues here in the US. There's a lot of
Yeah.
time to catch up, and the development it's different. But we are in a good direction. We're just not there yet.
And Michele, I love what you said about trying to explain world football to, maybe a fellow American who doesn't necessarily follow football very closely. It's almost in my friends that, hey, in the Premier League, there's no playoffs, bro. They go, what? I'm like, no, dude, you get 3 points for a win, 1 for a draw.
Yeah.
And wherever you're at on the table, that's whoever's first on the table at the end of the year, that's how you win. And then I start going through tiebreakers, and then I tell them about Champions League. And then they go, oh, well, that's technically playoffs. I said, well, yeah, but you got to qualify for that. And then the whole relegation process, so I totally understand how, things kind of, and with us and with the MLS, we do have playoffs. Teams don't get relegated. So I think that's kind of, the differences between us and Europe. But I like that you brought that up. Now, once again, Michele Giannoni joining us here on our Inter Miami Radio Network and Pink Smoke. Michele, let's get into some Inter Miami stuff, because before that loss to Orlando, Inter Miami was 11 straight unbeaten. And listen, I was probably I called the game when Inter Miami lost 4-3 to Orlando. I was probably the most shocked guy in the building. But believe it or not, Inter Miami fan, they wouldn't admit it, but Inter Miami's in a great spot right now. Third in that Eastern Conference. You got the whole season, to I think Inter Miami proved last year, just get into the dance. You're always going to have an opportunity. You have Lionel Messi. You could win anywhere in this league. So where are you at with Inter Miami and what you've seen so far from our Herons?
They're still the favorites to win at least getting to MLS Cup on the East. That hasn't changed. Like you said, the first ingredient is that you have the best player of all time, still being the best player in Major League Soccer with Leo Messi, and we got to remember that when we analyze Inter Miami, sometimes I think people lose focus of what you just said. The team has lost just 2 games the whole year, just 2 games, all competition, and there's third in the East. Everything is good, but obviously the losses have been very loud. Of course, when you play in front of 70,000 people against LAFC, is the first game of the season, you lose
Right.
3-0. So it makes a lot of noise. Then you get out of the Conca Champions Cup, which was the main objective this year. I remember doing MLS Cup and talking with Jorge Mas, a team owner, um, on the field after just winning the MLS Cup, and he was telling everyone, "We're going for CONCACAF Champions. We're going for the CONCACAF Champions Cup. That's the number one objective." And that's why they were very busy on the winter trading market, bringing St. Clair, bringing Berterame, bringing Ayala, and all the movement that they made, because they went for it. So what happened is that then you get knocked out by this dumb rule of the away goal that CONCACAF still has. That it does
Dumbest rule in world football, Michele.
it's nobody has it anymore. Just CONCACAF, which is completely absurd. But that's another discussion.
I agree.
So it was that was a huge blow, and so it's not even it's mid March, and then you're on this limbo of now what? The players and Mascherano are looking at each other. It's like, now what? We now have 30 more games to play at MLS. This was our main objective, and we just failed. So there was like a heavy atmosphere in the team, and then you get hit by injuries, especially at midfield. At the same time, with Segovia, with Ayala, with Wright got suspended, and obviously you're still missing Busquets on the midfield. So it was kind of a weird month between the injuries, Mascherano leaving, getting knocked out of CONCACAF. So it was like a heavy atmosphere. I got to do 2 or 3 Inter Miami games during that span, and you could feel it when you talk with people in the front office, when you talk with players. It's like we're just like going through the motions right now. Everything is like weird. So now it feels like the ship it's getting redirected in a good way, because this team has too much quality. And now you got, for example, when you see the starting lineup today, you see Segovia is back, Bright is back, and you have more players, right? I remember doing the game. I did the game on site when they tied against New England. But I think it was the third tie in a row on the new stadium before losing to
Yep.
Orlando.
Yep.
And I remember that the whole bench was academy players. So you have those moments, and yeah, people don't want to hear excuses because it's Inter Miami, because it's Messi, because it's DePaul, etc. But these things happens. Teams go into, it on every sport, and they're not robots. They're
Right.
human beings, so they're gonna go into slump, and that elimination on the CONCACAF Champions Cup was very hard on the team. That was the reason why Mascherano left the team, because the atmosphere inside the building, it was not great. So I think the team is back on track. I'm pretty sure the front office is going to work to get the things that they need to work on the summer transfer window. and the team's still the number one favorite, in my opinion, to win MLS Cup again.
Draws feel like losses, and that shouldn't be the case. And
Yeah.
you said it perfectly. 2 losses all year in all competitions. This is a great team. You got all year long. Still got the League's Cup, too. Plenty of trophies. Supporter Shield, if you want to go for it. Obviously, MLS Cup to defend that, and League's Cup. Plenty of competition still to go. Now, Michele, before I let you go, partner, I appreciate all the time here on our Inter Miami Radio Network. What can myself and what can our listeners expect from Cincinnati? I mentioned when I started the show, Cincinnati's historically played Lionel Messi and our Herons pretty tough. Obviously, things went our way in the playoffs last year, but Cincinnati got off to a slow start last year, or rather, not last year, excuse me, slow start in the beginning of this year. They're 6 unbeaten now within the MLS. What can we expect from Cincinnati on our Inter Miami Radio Network tonight?
Well, you've seen it, right? When Cincinnati and Evander and players like Evander and Denki are on, they're a formidable team. But when especially Evander is not on his day, this is a team that struggles to get results. And you saw it on the playoffs. Evander had a bad playoffs, and the team just didn't make it, right? And this been the constant under Pat Noonan. It's a team that is difficult to find and tell you what their identity, because they have great players, great individuals, but they depend on those individuals. So they have great players on the back line, like Miles Robinson, like Miazga. They have a really good goalkeeper. They have Evander, they have Denki. But if those individuals are not on their day, the rest of the team suffers. So it's always with Cincinnati, it's always like a flip of a coin. You've seen it. The history against Miami, it's weird because, for example, you have one of the games was 3-0 in favor of Cincinnati last year with Lionel Messi on the field. And then on the other game was Miami just dominating them, and then on the playoffs. So it's Cincinnati's it depends. If you can neutralize Evander, which is easier said than done,
right?
Normally teams like Miami that can be aggressive and have playmakers. They're a team that concede a lot of goals. Miami can get a result today for sure.
Michele, thanks so much, partner. You are welcome on the Inter Miami Radio Network whenever you want, partner. And are you at a game tonight? I'm at your mercy. What game are you at tonight?
No, I'm actually doing studio work. I'm doing the wrap-up show in Spanish.
Nice.
So I'm at the MLS studios right now.
Awesome. So for all my Spanish speakers, man, to be on the lookout for Michele on Apple TV coming up tonight. Thanks so much, partner. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mike. Anytime.
Yep. All right, that was Michele Giannone from Apple TV. Once again, you could catch him tonight on the wrap-up show on the Spanish side, so make sure you tune into him. But, folks, we're just getting the party started here on our Inter Miami Radio Network. Now, when we come back, we'll go through the injury report. I do have starting lineups, Lionel Messi in the starting lineup, and we will actually be ending our stream on YouTube, but you can listen to us on that ESPN South Florida app. So, folks, download the South Florida app. That is ESPN South Florida, the app. You can listen to us on 106.3 FM on the radio dial in West Palm Beach. But for everyone on YouTube, we're going to be traveling on over to our Gamecast. So I will talk to all you coming up here in just a little bit. But Pink Smoke will roll on next here on your Inter Miami Radio Network.
Picture this, a curve in the road, a change in plans. Well, what do you say? With the all-new Audi Q3, the answer's always yes. Yes to adventure. Yes to escape. Yes to performance. Yes to comfort. Yes to right now. Because saying yes without hesitation, that's real luxury. The all-new Audi Q3, made for the yes life.
For 40 years, Lytle, Ryder, Smith, Ivy, and Fraunrath has stood up for clients in South Florida communities. If you've been injured, their experienced attorneys across South Florida are ready to fight for your rights. They've recovered billions for their clients. There's no cost for a case evaluation and no fee unless they win. Visit foryourrights.com. That's foryourrights.com.